What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we're actually going to be doing another Pokemon Go tutorial, and this time it's going to be related to Pokemon storage. I'm going to be talking about some of the strategies that I use to actually keep my storage numbers down. So I actually only have like 1,050 slots, and for some people who are well past that might be saying something like, how in the world do you keep your box that low? I'll be talking about all of that. We'll be going through some naming techniques as well, and kind of talking about just some general purposes that I use when I am actually taking care of my Pokemon. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the episode. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to go ahead and address is going to be how can you kind of promote basically some good habits to begin with. And the first one is going to be, when you're not doing something like a raid or gym battles, something like that, make sure that you go ahead and switch your Pokemon storage over to recent. The reason being is because a lot of times people's storage gets out of hand simply because they're not taking care of it as it goes along. So I purposefully left a couple of Pokemon in here, but basically what this is going to encourage you to do a couple of times is that you will see the most recent Pokemon and you can remember to transfer them. In case you don't do it while you're catching, for instance, if you're doing the fast catch method, you basically don't want to worry about transferring until you end up catching as many as you can. So in this case, I've got, a chance to get rid of over, 11 or so. And basically, if I run into something that's actually going to be interesting and going to serve a purpose, I make sure to name it. But we'll definitely be covering some of the naming mechanics. So just like that, just being kind of proactive, you can end up saving a ton of space just by switching over to recent and then taking care of them as they go. But now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some different naming mechanics that I use to help me out with my Pokemon storage. So I actually use the naming mechanic to help me out with what the purpose of the Pokemon is going to be. So let's go ahead and take a look at Gen 4, for example. Basically, instead of just keeping a lot of Pokemon and not being really sure what I'm going to do with it, I try to keep the ones that are going to serve a purpose, and then I name them whatever that purpose is. So in this case, I'm trying to prepare for Generation 4, and I'm sure a lot of people are starting to do this. Since there have been a couple rumors that Gen 4 will be out, I highly recommend you to start doing this. But as you will see, I've collected quite a bit of them. But recently, I was able to catch a Mischievous. So instead of just not doing anything with it, just, not even sure if I have one or not, what I started doing was labeling it Gen 4. And then I know I've got enough candy, so I don't really have to keep any more of them. To be honest, if I got any more of them, I'm probably not going to do anything with it. And then some other cases would be something like an Ambipom. In this case, I just want one of them, probably just for a Pokédex entry. That's very important as well, as to just kind of keep them that way. So something else that I do is going to be Pokemon that I want to power up. These are going to be Pokemon that I've verified they are the top tier on the IVs. And then secondly, they're going to be a low enough level that I definitely want to power it up. So for example, what I do is I put the plus sign in front. Unfortunately, when you search for a plus sign, it doesn't actually do anything, which is a little bit strange. But basically in this case, what I do is sort it from A to Z so that I can see everything that I know I want to power up. For example, we have, a Ralts, we've got some Blissies, we've got a couple other things. Metagross is another one that I am paying attention to. And then another way is when I'm IV checking, I have, the 100 IV. So beyond that, what is another way you could actually get into the cleanup? We talked a little bit about just the naming mechanics and how it's going to help. I think one last thing we need to talk about is going to be in regards to really good Pokemon and going ahead and getting like a really good setup on it. So basically what I do is I take the move type and I put a letter assigned to it. I do have a video, by the way, where I'm going through all of that. I'll definitely put a link in the description. But let's go ahead and move on to the next point. So the next tip to cleaning up the clutter is going to be sorting it by the number. In this case, whether you've nicknamed it, whether you haven't really checked, you're going to be able to see exactly how many you have of a certain type. And then you just kind of have to realize, what's important to you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you need to get rid of that Bulbasaur, especially if it has some type of sentimental meaning to you. by all means keep whatever you have some type of attachment to. But this is going to be a good way to just get a really good grasp of exactly what is going to be there. So for the most part, with these community day Pokemon, I haven't exactly been the best of cleaning those up, but since there's only been a couple of them that I caught it, they don't take up like an incredible amount of space. But then when you start getting into some more things, basically like I said before, if it ends up being a high IV one, I'm definitely going to do my naming mechanic to it. So if I have something like a Pidgeot, I know it's not going to be a high IV, so I could definitely transfer it. So for instance, something like Eradicate, there's really no point in having one, so I'll definitely transfer those. But like I said, I mean, when you start doing stuff like this, it's going to add up very quickly over time. So let's go ahead and move down. Basically, these are going to be pointless to have. And I have already gone through and checked for legacy moves, so that's not going to be a big deal. As a general practice, I do like to keep at least one of each of the final evolution of a Pokemon. For instance, we do have Ninetales here, and I know that this Ninetales is going to roughly be a wonder for sure, and then this one is definitely not going to be, so I'll go ahead and transfer that one. Just realizing that you need to kind of get ahead of the game before it's too late and you feel like you can't take care of it. So for the most part, if I don't actually do that naming mechanic, if it ends up taking a little bit too long, I'll just basically star it instead. That's something else, just get it down as a favorite. So for example, these are going to be two that really aren't going to serve any purpose as far as the IVs go, so I'll go ahead and get rid of them. I apologize if you are a fan of Arcanine. So this is actually going to be the first lucky Pokemon on this list. Definitely going to be a cool one. I do plan on powering it up at some point. For the most part, I tried it, by the way, to not ever get above 6 of a single Pokemon. So as you will see, I have 6 Alakazams. Most of them are, very high IVs, so I'll definitely keep them. But if I ended up getting a couple more, I might try to consolidate it a little bit. But at least right now, it's not going to be too big of a deal. So actually, I was cleaned up a little bit more than I thought. There was really only one unknown that I had duplicates of that I actually didn't want to have. So I definitely want to say bye-bye to that. Maybe in some ways you do have to be a little heartless when you're doing this to basically summarize everything. It's just going to be this simple. When you go out and you're catching, make sure you switch to the recent mode so you can take care of them as they come in. The second step is to limit yourself as to how many that you are willing to take. If it's a Pokemon that is going to be good from 2 different standpoints, maybe you could do 12 at most, but beyond that, I think 6 is a good general rule, just as like a team size, if that makes sense, like having 6 Mewtwo's, for instance. Basically, I use that as an advantage to have more candy to be able to power them up in the first place. And then thirdly is probably assigning the meaning to the Pokemon and why you are holding on to it. That's going to be definitely helpful to know, what you're willing to get rid of, what you need to keep. I think that basically you're just going to give yourself some type of structure, which is going to go a long way. Anyways, I hope you did enjoy this episode. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section if any of it did help you or if you have any tips. I definitely recommend anyone watching this video to check out the comment section for some other tips. Anyways, I hope you did enjoy it, and I will see you next time.
Hit me like a tidal wave.